Centrist Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, on Thursday called for a broad bipartisan deal to protect the solvency of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, popular programs that face serious funding issues over the next few decades. You're going to get your financial house in order. We cannot live with this crippling debt. Manchin, whose pivotal vote both delayed and helped pass big pieces of President Biden's agenda, told Fortune's Alan Murray at a CEO conference. If we don't look at the trust funds that are going bankrupt, whether they be Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, Highway, all the ones, these are tremendous problems right now. Manchin said when asked where he sees areas of potential compromise in Washington after the November 8th midterm elections. If we can't come to grips of how we face the financial challenge for this country has, if we can't come to grips of how we face the financial challenge that this country has, okay, I made a mistake there. I thought the Hill was acting up. Then we're all going to be paying a price that we can't afford, he said. Manchin, who sank Biden's ambitious $3 trillion Build Back Better agenda in December, has often talked about the financial challenges facing Social Security and Medicaid. The Social Security Administration announced last year that it is not projected to have the funds to pay full benefits past 2033. In February, Manchin proposed addressing that shortfall by increasing the amount of income subject to taxation of fund Social Security from 147,000 to 400,000. And Manchin pushed back hard against Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders' effort to expand Medicare to include vision, dental, and hearing benefits by arguing that the core program itself was in danger because of the soaring federal debt. My big concern right now is the 2026 deadline for Medicare insolvency, and if no one's concerned about that, I've got people that's a lifeline. Medicare and Social Security is a lifeline for people back in West Virginia, most people around the country. Manchin told reporters in October of last year. If Manchin continues to push for a bipartisan deal to shore up the finances of Social Security and Medicare, he could have a negotiating partner in Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, who has proposed broad entitlement reform on several previous occasions. After Republicans captured the Senate majority in the 2014 midterm election, McConnell decried what he called the unsustainable growth rate of Social Security and Medicare and warned we need to adjust these popular programs or they won't be here in the next generation. In October of 2018, when Republicans controlled the White House, the Senate, and the House, McConnell said that entitlement spending, not the Republican push to cut taxes, was the main driver of the federal deficit. It's a bipartisan problem. Unwillingness to address the real drivers of the debt by doing anything to adjust those programs to the demographics of America in the future, he told Bloomberg News at the time. Manchin, who appeared Thursday before a room full of CEOs via video link, urged the audience to stop making political donations to members of Congress without getting solid commitments to improve the nation's governance in return. Quit writing checks to everybody, he said. He argued that successful CEOs build good companies because they expect return on their investment, yet too often they write checks to lawmakers in Washington without expecting anything of real substance in return. The investments you've made in politics from the Democrat side and the Republican side by asking nothing in return is a foolish investment, he said. Why don't you do this? Tell a politician when they come to you, say, listen, I'm sorry, I don't give checks. I give a donation or contribution to any politician, but I'm willing to make an investment. What should I expect from you? What are you going to do? Manchin advised. He said too many donors are giving checks to bad behavior by supporting candidates and office holders who are too happy to let partisan gridlock rule the nation's capital. Oh, that was quite the read. So, I think the issue of, I guess, the lack of funding for Medicare and Social Security is something that is worth discussing and talking about and finding a way to solve, because they're right. If it's not funded, then it's going to not be there for people who are later going to be on the program. Although I do think that Manchin's really silly for using that as an excuse to not back Sanders' push to include, more coverage for dental and um, teeth and whatnot. Just different things that aren't included in coverage from Medicare. I think it was really ridiculous of him to not support Sanders' expansion of it, because the things he's asking for, I feel like you could make a good argument should be there already, um, as essential services. But where he loses me, and I'm just going off the Manchin I know, maybe somebody else has some proof, but from what I've seen, every time we have a military budget, to fund the U.S.'s forever wars across the world, every year these things get bigger. Sometimes they get bigger by 10 million, sometimes they get bigger by 100 million, or excuse me, 100 billion, I should say. And I've never seen Manchin come out and go, hey, we need to stop, we need to cut the military budget and decrease it severely because of all the funds that are going to these different conflicts that aren't ending, that aren't solving or getting any better year after year, decade after decade. It just seems like every time there's a program that's domestic, they can find a way to say it needs to be cut or we need to do something to gut it and the finances are going to it. But if there's a program that's being used for something that is not benefiting Americans in any way that live here, and certainly isn't benefiting people abroad when they get these weapons used against them, I just think it's really interesting how he never has anything to say about it. And maybe I'm wrong. Somebody can show me an article, but as far as I can tell, he's never spoken out against the increasing amount of military spending. But the part at the end is so interesting because, for as bad as Manchin is, it's rare to have a politician who tells you that politicians are not worth just blindly supporting. But here's where he loses me. In the article, so like they mention, the investment you made in politics from both sides by asking nothing in return is a foolish investment. And, I agree with that. Um, you know, the part where he says, or where he's like taking the position of the voter that's the hypothetical donor and saying, I don't give checks, I don't give a donation or contribution to any politician, but I'm willing to make an investment. What should I expect from you? What are you going to do? So that stuff like that's good. But when we get to the part toward the end where he says, giving checks to bad behavior by supporting these candidates and office holders who are happy to have partisan gridlock, if I remember correctly, and I have a pretty good memory, um, Biden had the House and Senate, and you would think a president who has both chambers of Congress should be able to pass whatever they want. But because Manchin wanted to hold on to the archaic filibuster, where you need, what is it, 60 votes to pass a major bill, he allowed a minority, which is what the Republicans were at that time, to stifle everything Biden wanted to do. Um, and even after Biden tried to appeal and compromise with these people, they still didn't want to support anything he wanted to do because of the clear agenda of, like, making him unsuccessful so he doesn't get a second term. My point is, I just think there's a real false equivalency here, that a lot of Democrats will oppose things Republicans do that are like against their stances, but the Republicans have had historic obstruction. I mean, look at what happened with Merrick Garland. Have you ever seen a Supreme Court justice that sits around month after month for damn near a year without any confirmation hearings because the Senate Majority Leader decides, well, I think we should wait until the next president is decided. But then when their party has the same situation occur several years later with Ginsburg, and they have all three chambers, they pass somebody really quickly. So, I just think in most instances in the current era, it's been the Republicans that have had this historic partisan gridlock, and he's trying to paint a false equivalency. But again, I do think Social Security and Medicare should be discussed more often and how to pay for them, and different proposals. I just wish he would say something about the military budget every once in a blue moon.